Chapter 2. The room felt like it was spinning. Which was fine, I was used to that. It wasn't anything more booze couldn't fix. I turned around and grabbed the edge of the bar, knocking back the rest of my whiskey before refilling the glass. I focused my gaze on the glossy oak bar top, tracing the lines of grain to a fat knot. Try finding a singular point to focus on. Let that point, whatever it is, a pencil, a picture on the wall, the feeling of the ridges on your fingertips when you rub your digits together, let that become your entire world. Focus like your goddamn life depends on it. Josephine Watson, my closest friend, confidant, and the only person who had ever been able to make sense of the psychic changes that plagued me. Finding a singular point of focus, that was Josephine's advice for dealing with the pull, but it certainly applied here after seeing the face of my dead wife. The knot was the size of a drink coaster. It was dark and had 2 cracks, frozen imperfections under the glossy wax. Grain flowed up to and then around the knot, which made me think of a whirlpool in the middle of the ocean. Something smashed into my back, and I collapsed forward into the bar, spilling the glass of whiskey and knocking the bottle over. The bar went silent. I watched as whiskey leaked from the bottle, pooling on the bar top. A strange fog pricked at my already alcohol-clouded brain. It filled my ears with a low, thrumming buzz. I could faintly hear Jimmy the bartender shouting, but I had no idea what he was saying. I pushed myself off the bar and wiped the whiskey from my chin. Jimmy came over, still shouting silently, at me or my attacker, and set the whiskey bottle upright. I turned to face my attacker, but no one was there. The ragtag crowd of dockside patrons watched me with excitement and confusion. No fists were raised, and I didn't see any one person stepping forward as my attacker. Scattered around me were splinters of the chair the mystery attacker had smashed into my back. I felt a tapping on my shoulder and turned slowly. Fuck, why did I feel so lethargic? This couldn't just be the whiskey, could it? And saw Jimmy was saying something to me. I still couldn't hear him, but I could feel what he meant. You're trouble, Abe Owens. Always have been, always will be. You're low-life scum, and you don't deserve to be here. Take it somewhere else. Jimmy stared at me, waiting for me to make a move. Finally, I nodded and started for the door. I could feel the eyes of every patron in the bar following me. Fuck. I made a stupid decision and turned around to go back to the bar. Jimmy's eyes went wide in fear. I pointed a finger at him and, instead of anything comprehensible, just growled at the bartender. Jimmy gulped. I grabbed the whiskey bottle. There was still a decent quarter that hadn't spilled, and exited the bar. The strange mental fog hadn't lifted by the time I made it to the nearby bus stop. I sucked down half of what was left of the whiskey and tried to unpack what had just happened, which was about as useful as an elephant trying to peel a banana. Another swig of the whiskey. The ground shifted as my head spun. The punch came out of nowhere. For the second time that night, I was caught entirely off guard, something that rarely happens thanks to the pull. I don't know if it was the person throwing the punch, surely the same attacker from inside the bar, or the fog from the dump truck quantities of booze I had consumed, but I didn't feel a thing until the fist connected with my face. I stumbled backward into the bus stop bench, grabbing my face as stars exploded. Usually a hit like that would be enough to sharpen my senses, but like I said, dump truck quantities of booze. I stumbled again and tried to focus on my attacker. It was late in the night, and even if my attacker hadn't been silhouetted against the streetlight, I wouldn't have been able to make out any of his details. Fuck! This whole night was a mistake. Not that I didn't know that from the start, but I have a rule about letting foresight get in the way of a bad idea. Another punch. It was weird, I saw it coming at the same time I felt it connect with my jaw. More stars. As I spun, or was that the world doing the spinning, I felt something pulling at my chest. Double fuck. Now it decides to give me a heads up? The pull. It was like an invisible thread that connected me directly to my attacker. The stronger the pull, the more I could feel every vibration of his emotional state. The stronger the emotional state, the more I intuitively understood the individual. It was a fucking nightmare that can only be drowned out with booze, preferably in quantities of a metric fuck-ton. The pull twanged in my chest. Anger, rage, frustration. Only the last emotion was mine, a time-delayed realization that my ill-advised bender would not end well. Was that ever in the cards? The other 2 emotions were his, my attacker's. The pull was distant and quieted by a wet blanket of entirely too much alcohol, but there was no mistaking my attacker's rage. As if the punches weren't already an obvious clue. I dropped to my knees while grabbing at my throbbing skull. I tried to say something, but I'm not sure what actually came out. I do know that despite whatever the plea was, my attacker didn't bother with a response. Instead, A kick to the face slammed me into the back of the bench. Repeated kicks to my gut made my ribs scream out, no doubt bruising under the impacts. I could feel myself drowning in alcohol-induced lethargy. I couldn't fight back even if I wanted to. And I didn't want to. I don't know what I did to this guy for him to use me as his personal piñata, but I knew in my gut it didn't matter. My brother was right. I deserved this. I deserved to be crucified. For abandoning Gertie. For letting her die alone. For not being strong enough. When my attacker's legs grew tired of kicking me, I collapsed and tumbled sideways into the ditch behind the bus stop. I rolled to a halt and felt myself sink slightly into the muddy bottom of the ditch, flat on my back. I wheezed a bubble of blood while staring up at a cloudless night sky, trying to make the stars less blurry as darkness crept around the edges of my vision. So this was what rock bottom felt like. I closed my eyes and tried to get comfortable. This was where I belonged. I heard the squelch of boots in the mud and felt my attacker digging through my pockets. He stood up, and I could see that he was stealing my money clip with what was left of my cash. This asshole was robbing me? That's what this was all about? Alright, fuck me. This was rock bottom. One more kick to the ribs. Fuck you very much, Abe Owens. And my attacker disappeared into the alcoholic fog from which he had materialized. Fuck me. Abraham Owens. Feeler of all the things. Doer of nothing. Abandoner of the only person who ever gave a damn about him. A broken punching bag lying at the bottom of a random ditch. Yeah, this was absolutely where I belonged. I wheezed and could feel the blackness beginning to lift me up and sweep me away. As weightlessness enveloped me, a single, inexplicably random thought whispered at me through the fog. What the fuck was that asshole doing with Gertie's face?